think we're good to go, so let's get started for today. I am Tim Holman. I am the faculty advisor for the Vanderbilt Amateur Radio Club, and Patrick is the president of the VUARC. So I would like to first of all welcome all of you to our very first license class for this academic year. Our plan is to do as many classes as we can before the end of this semester, and then wrap up at the beginning of next semester in time for you guys to either do an online test, which you can do nowadays, or else to take one of the tests they give down with the Nashville Nashville Volunteer Examiner Corps. And so you can either have it in person or do it online. So people opt both ways. Certainly the online one may have more flexibility depending where you are. But anyway, I just wanted to basically start today with a little bit of an introduction to everybody. So first of all, we should all have this license manual. So this is for you to use while you're working on your license. Please don't lose it. We need it back because we want to use it next year. So these are good through, I think, 2026, and we're going to be reusing these over and over. Okay, this is Module 1. Welcome to Amateur Radio. This is not going to be a really intense lecture today because we're basically just going to go through some introductory material, give you guys some background. Because a lot of people hear about, oh, I'm going to get an amateur radio license, I want to be a ham radio operator, but not necessarily do they have a good idea what it is that hams do. And so part of what I'm going to do today is just kind of go over some of this stuff. So, first of all, I am your instructor, or as we say in the amateur radio world, I am the Elmer, okay? And this is a term that originated a long time ago. Your Elmer is your mentor, the person who helps you get your license. So I'm going to be the Elmer for all of you guys in this class by hopefully getting you through this class material and making sure you all get licensed. So I'm an amateur extra licensee. That's the highest level license. I was first licensed as a novice in 1972, which scares me every bit as much as it may scare you. That was a long time ago. And of course, as I said before, I am the faculty advisor for the VUARC. So first of all, I just want to kind of go around the room here and just kind of do an introduction here, okay? I want everybody to say your name, why you're here, what your major is. I assume you're all students. And just, why do you want to be licensed? And then kind of maybe a fun fact about yourself. So kind of start over here and just kind of work around. What's your name?
I'm Alex. I'm a physics and mechanical major.
Okay.
Why do I want to be licensed? Can you even do remote control radio?
Absolutely you can. You can do remote control radio and amateur radio. In fact, a lot of people get their amateur licenses specifically to use it as a method of remote control. And in fact, you can use frequencies and power levels that you can't do with the little hobbyist remote controls that you can get online. So you can actually use higher power levels and different operating frequencies so you won't have interference. So yes, you absolutely can do that.
That's wild.
All right. And can you tell us a fun fact about yourself?
Sure. I play the organ.
Okay. I assumed as a piano player you might have more than one instrument. Okay, good, good. And incidentally, I want to say that I respect the fact that you're double majoring or minoring? Okay. I respect that because it's a lot harder to get into the School of Music than it is to get into the School of Engineering. Wow. Okay. All right.
Hi everyone. My name's Neil. I'm a CS major, and I want to do this course because one of the clubs I'm involved with uses technology relating to radio. It's Satellite Club. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they need to have a little more expertise on this area. So I just wanted to do it.
I'm actually helping some of the Satellite Club folks right now. So yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Good. Excellent. And fun fact?
Yeah, I'm from Nashville.
Well, okay. That's moderately fun. I don't know.
My name is Emery. I'm an electrical engineering student, and I want to be licensed because why not? And fun fact about myself is I drink a lot of tea.
Good. Who's next?
All right, I'm Adam. I am an electrical and computer engineer. I want to be licensed just because I'm curious as to what this is in general. And fun fact about myself is I'm on the Vanderbilt drum line.
Okay, a lot of musicians. Okay, listen, that's good. A couple of musicians here. All right, next.
Hello, my name is Sebastian. I am a chemical engineering major. I want to learn about. I want to be licensed. Also, mostly out of curiosity, because how I just want to learn how this works, and also I'm interested in how to use this to remotely control devices as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a fun fact, I like space. I love space. I want to work in aerospace.
And a lot of application for that, space. In fact, we'll talk about some of that as we go along.
My name is Clark. I'm a sophomore at Becky. I want to be licensed for similar reasons here. It seems cool, and I want to be licensed in more things. And fun fact about myself is I've gotten stung by bees 3 times with the same finger.
Okay.
Hey y'all, I'm Joel. I'm currently undecided in the School of Engineering. I get a free radio from being licensed, so why not? And I don't like peanut butter at all.
Okay.
Not for me.
I'm Brandon. I'm a chemie major.
Oh, look, my wife's a social worker, and she has her amateur license. So, believe me, it doesn't matter. It's just the interest in the subject and the technical stuff.
I'm just here to be able to work something different.
Huh? Well,
And fun fact, other guy I disagree, peanut butter is probably my favorite food.
I would personally consider peanut butter one of the basic food groups when you're a college student, but that's just me. All right. Okay. So anyway, Patrick, you want to say something about yourself?
Yeah, guys, my name is Patrick. I'm an electrical engineering senior. I'm already licensed. Fun fact is I have a twin. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, welcome once again. And I just want to mention to everybody, if you know someone else who wants to be part of this license class, please talk to them, because we're not going to cover anything really technical today. We're really going to start the technical content next time. So by all means, invite them over. We've got plenty of license manuals. We'll have additional radios. So we'll be passing those out and distributing those as soon as those people show up. So please, if you know anybody else who wants to join, bring them over here. All right, so what are the expectations if you're here? First of all, I just want to say that earning the license is not just like filling out paperwork. You've got to study, you've got to pass a test, so it requires some effort. It doesn't require a huge amount of effort for a technician class license, but you do have to put in a little bit of time. There's a study guide, of course, you guys have all got. You need to read that. You especially need to review the question pool that's in each chapter, okay? After class, look for the question pool for each chapter we cover, because any of the questions you're going to see on the exam will be in that question pool. They pull all the exam questions directly out of that. Also, once you have your radio, learn to use it. There are a lot of active repeaters. You can actually hear people working it and talking it. Now, when you get the radio, the transmit function will be disabled. Once you get your license, we will enable your transmit function, and then you can work the repeaters and talk to anybody you want. I should also say, please participate in VUARC activities, okay? We've got, an active club with some neat stuff coming along. We're going to be hopefully launching a Pico balloon, and what that is a small balloon about this big that's going to hit the upper stratosphere, and with luck may actually travel all the way around the world, reporting its distance, running on solar power. So we're hoping to get that one off the ground and flying very soon now. And we've got some other interesting activities, basically in the queue as well. So by all means, it's the best way to learn is just by participating. And more than anything else, just get involved. Ham radio is not a spectator sport. You basically become a ham radio operator by doing things that a ham does, and learn how to use your radio, join some organization. So, course overview. Today we're just going to kind of do what we're doing now, kind of a welcome to amateur radio. Then we're going to move through each of these succeeding chapters: radio and signals fundamentals, electricity components and circuits, propagation, antennas and feed lines, amateur radio equipment, how to communicate with other hams, licensing regulations, operating regulations, and then finally safety to wrap things up. And at that point, you should all hopefully be ready to go and take the license yourself. So I want to mention that if you are an electrical engineer or a computer engineer, or you have a background, for example, in electricity or magnetism from coursework you've taken, you're going to find a lot of this stuff here probably pretty simple, very straightforward. If you don't have any kind of electronics background, don't worry about it. This is not that difficult. The concepts are very straightforward at this level. And to a certain extent, you can get by with some memorization too. So, but it's not that difficult to learn what you need to know to pass the exam. So, begin with, first of all, your goal is to get the amateur radio license. So, getting your license is going to authorize you to operate a transmitter. And that's the interesting part. Anybody can buy an amateur radio receiver. Okay? Anybody can listen to the ham bands, but if you want to talk to people, you've got to have your own license. So, in this case, like I said, once you actually get your license, we're going to enable the transmit function. And what each of you are going to be getting is one of these little bear things. And these will be free to you to keep and hopefully to use. They're actually pretty capable little radios. They're running about $25 each, and we will just get it to you along with the charger and everything else you need. So once we have our repeater up and running again, which hopefully won't be that much longer if we can find a place to put it, then we're going to be able to use these and to communicate with each other using the campus repeater, as well as any of the other repeaters around the city. And we'll talk more about what a repeater is later on. But this is what you're going to be getting. Now this is an inexpensive one. There are nicer ones like this one, this Yaesu of mine. This is several $100s. This is an extremely capable little radio you can carry in your hand. But there are also other little inexpensive radios like this you can get. So a lot of very low-cost radios of different models you can pick up. Amazon is a gold mine as far as looking for very inexpensive amateur radio equipment. So anyway, you're going to get the radio soon, and once you're licensed, we're going to let you transmit on that. We'll change the firmware so you'll be able to operate on that. So, what is amateur radio? Well, amateur radio it's a personal radio service that is authorized by the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. So, it has several reasons. When you actually look in the rules and regulations as to why amateur radio why it was created, basically it was to encourage the advancement of the art and science of radio, to promote the development of an emergency communication capability, and that's still one of the major things hams do today. They provide communications in times of disaster. To develop a pool of trained radio operators. This isn't quite as relevant as it used to be. Back in 100 years ago, when amateur radio was just getting started, the idea of having people who knew how to operate a radio was a very important thing in wartime. Nowadays, not so much, but it is still one of the rationales, giving people that ability to understand how radio works. And finally, to promote international goodwill by connecting private citizens in countries all over the globe. You'll be communicating with people in countries all over the world, with very few exceptions. And this is an opportunity for you to reach out and, in effect, become an ambassador, okay, to other countries as a member of the amateur radio community. So, oops, thought I got that. All right, so amateur radio service is governed by Part 97 of the FCC rules and regulations. So anyone can obtain a ham radio operator license in the U.S. unless you are a representative of a foreign government. So if you're like a diplomat, or so you work for the diplomatic corps, or you are a legal representative, you can't be a ham radio operator. But otherwise, there are no limits as far as age or citizenship. And another thing too, and this is important about amateur radio, you can't make any money doing it. You can't accept payment of any type for operating the radio, not in goods or services. This is a completely non-profit operation. If you want to make money using radio, you have to get a business radio license. Totally different thing. So, amateur radio enables a lot of different activities: public service, scientific experimentation, electronics, and of course, a lot of people will just tell you it's a lot of fun. So there are currently about 750,000 amateur radio operators in the United States, about 1.75 million worldwide at best estimates, all right? And there are amateur radios everywhere. So there are many amateur radio operators on the faculty, within the student body. They're every place. And so many people you don't even know are hams and enjoy doing it. So the nice thing about amateur radio is it lets you communicate without the internet or cell phone network. It goes wherever you want to go. You can always carry a radio with you. In fact, a lot of people will carry in their cars an inexpensive little radio like this and just keep it in the glove compartment, because you never know, if you're in a place where cell phone reception doesn't work, you can still call for help. So something like that can be a lifesaver. Also, you can reach into outer space with amateur radio. So we've got people, you can talk to the International Space Station. There are typically ham radio operators among the astronaut corps. In fact, we did that with the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, and we actually communicated with this International Space Station just a couple of months ago. Also, we have satellites orbiting the Earth right now, and those satellites will retransmit signals from here in the U.S., and you can actually talk to people overseas using nothing more than a little radio like this and an antenna that you point at the satellite. So that's pretty cool. With a little small low-powered radio like this, you can literally talk thousands of miles. There are even people who bounce signals off the moon bounce. So people who really want to push it, actually sending out a signal and then getting that signal bounced back. It's about 1.5 seconds each way, so it's about 3 seconds round trip bouncing off the moon. And there are amateurs who actually challenge themselves to send signals that way. You'll also see amateurs who'll do things like they will bounce signals off of ionized trails whenever we have meteor showers in order to talk to people thousands of miles away. So some pretty neat stuff that people do in terms of really interesting signal propagation things. We'll talk more about that later on. Of course, also in times of disaster, that's when amateur radio shines, because we will work with agencies, you know, American Red Cross, Salvation Army, FEMA. Whenever there's a disaster and all the lines of communication are down, cell phone towers are out, there's no power, ham radio operators move in and they provide the emergency communications until we get the infrastructure back up again. So when we had the hurricane come through and strike in Florida, okay, when Ian came through, we had a whole area that was wiped out, no communications, no power, and ham radio operators in Florida helped reestablish communications until we got all these services back online again. In addition, you'll find amateur radio operators working as volunteers at events like county fairs and parades and marathon races and things like that, where they'll provide communication to help assist with the logistics of the race or the event. Now, when you talk to people with amateur radio, okay, you can talk by voice, obviously, and of course that's what these little radios here will do, but also you can do Morse code, and people kind of have a traditionalist view of Morse code for amateur radio, sitting there and tapping on the key. That was how amateur radio started, but that's long in the past. There's still a lot of people who like to do Morse code, but it's not required to get the license anymore. But really some of the most exciting stuff that's going on in amateur radio today is digital modes, interfacing your radio with a computer, and then sending digital modes and communicating with these weak signal techniques, and it's amazing what you can do with those. So a lot of people are very much involved in that nowadays because it's a way of combining your radio with your computer or your laptop computer and do some pretty amazing things. A lot of people are also into contesting. In other words, competing to see how many contacts you can get. There's almost always every weekend a contest on some amateur band somewhere. I will say that I personally do not care for contest testing. I avoid contests like the plague, but there are some people who live for them. So again, it all depends upon what you want to do, what you get out of the hobby. So what makes ham radio different? Well, there are already lots of unlicensed radio services available. So for example, this little radio here that you can get for $20 is a family radio service, FRS radio. Anybody can buy one of these. And these are basically intended for just the casual consumer to have some way of communicating with family members or anything like that. So people go camping and things like that, they'll carry these little radios with them. But amateur radio is a lot different than these simple, low power, anybody can use them, you know, radio services. Because first of all, there are a lot fewer restrictions. You have a lot more frequencies that you can operate on, an entire range of frequencies going all the way from around the AM band frequencies up in the very high microwave frequencies. So we have a very wide range to operate with. We can operate much higher power. We also have literally hundreds of different ways to communicate. So when you look at all the different digital modes out there, teletype, video, slow scan TV, voice, single sideband, digital sideband, and then all the different sub-variations of those. It's all different kinds of ways of communicating. So if you just don't like talking to people, you want to sit and type on a keyboard and have text message exchanges with people, you can do that on ham radio, but you don't need the internet to do it. And the nice thing about it, of course, more than anything else, it's free. Amateur radio doesn't cost you a thing. So your ham radio is, once you purchase it and you basically then pay your license fee and get your license, after that it's free to operate as much as you want to. Now of course, with greater operating privileges comes greater responsibility, because you have a lot more capability, which means that capability means you can interfere with other radio services. It is actually not that difficult to take a radio like this little inexpensive radio, and program it to operate on frequencies and interfere with emergency services. Okay? Totally illegal to do it, but you can do it. What you want to do is you don't want to do it by accident. So you want to make sure that you're not going to interfere with other radio services, especially emergency services. Also, you have worldwide reach. Okay, a lot of these little FRS radios and CB and things like that are limited to a few miles of range. There's a limit to how much damage you can do if you don't know what you're doing. But if you've got a high-powered amateur station and you're broadcasting 1,000 watts, you can cause a lot of interference to a lot of users. So the idea behind getting the license through the FCC is to make sure that you understand what you're doing, that you're operating safely, you're operating legally, okay? And that's why you're taking this course, and that's why you're studying this material, to make sure you don't do something wrong. So what do you have to do to get your license? First of all, you're going to study the material in the ham radio license. 5th edition is what you should have. Review the question pool. All right, any question you're going to be asked on the book, or on your exam, is going to be in the back of that book, in the back of the study guide. There are some people with really good memories who have literally passed the amateur exam without understanding anything they were doing by memorizing the 600 question test pool in the back of the book. And then they just walked in and they had everything memorized and they just passed the exam and walked out the door. I hope you don't have to resort to that, okay? Hopefully you're going to learn enough here where you're going to be able to figure out or remember or know most of this stuff yourself. But I've known people with incredibly good memories who get away with that sort of thing. There are also, before you take the exam for real, there are lots of practice exams. So you can go online. There are several websites. Here are a couple of them. One of them is the American Radio Relay League's website, and they've got an exam review site and also hamexam.org. This is a really good website. And what you'll do is you can sit down and say, I want to take a practice test. And what they'll do is they will do basically a computer-generated exam, which is going to pull from the question pool the same way that you're going to get the exam whenever you sit down and take it yourself. 35 question multiple choice test. Okay, you've got to answer 26 of those questions correctly. When you get to the point where you can sit down and take 6 or 7 of those practice tests in a row and pass every time, you're probably ready to go and take the exam on your own. So definitely want to practice, definitely want to start reviewing some of this material as you go along. And I'll actually point out some additional resources you guys can use as we go through this. Now I also want to mention ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, and of course they are the authors of the study guide you have. This is, I think, the largest amateur organization in the United States and I think possibly the entire world. But they represent a significant portion of the amateurs in the United States are members of the ARRL. So you'll see this over and over again. I personally am a member. Okay, you get a nice magazine and everything, but what the American Radio Relay League does more than anything else is they advocate for our rights as hams, because amateur, I should say radio spectrum, okay, is a very valuable commodity in today's world. There are thousands of companies and businesses out there that want to take all that radio spectrum and use it and monetize it and make money off of it. But amateur radio is free, and the problem is if we don't defend our spectrum, businesses will go and persuade a congressman to, sponsor a bill that will take those frequencies away. So the ARRL, one of the things they've been doing literally for just about the entire creation of amateur radio in the United States has been to defend our frequencies and to make sure that amateur radio survives. So what we're going to be doing as we go through this license, through these license modules here, these exam modules, is we're going to pull some questions out of the test, or pull some exam questions out of the back of the test guide. So here's one, for example. What agency regulates and enforces the rules for the amateur radio service in the United States? This is one of the questions you might see on the exam. What's the answer? C. That's exactly it. So this is what you're going to see. A bunch of multiple choice questions, and there'll be 4 choices. Now sometimes the answer might be none of the above or all of the above. Okay, so it's not always pick one. They can be sometimes a little tricky. But as I said, what we intend to do as we go through this is I want you guys to have a feel or develop a feel for what the right answer is for a lot of this stuff as much as possible without relying on memorization. So help teach you some of those fundamentals. All right, so again, online exams, all right, be sure to start reading the book. Go through the first module, through some of the introductory material, look in your first chapter of the book, and also start reviewing some of the questions that are in the back of the book that are associated with that first chapter. All right? So that's it. Like I said, today was a short one, kind of an introduction. Next time we'll actually start getting into more of the technical material, but in the meantime, now that you guys have kind of seen what amateur radio is all about here, if you know other people who want to join the license, join the license class, by all means, please reach out to them, invite them to come to the next one. And so I think we're going to have a good time. None of this stuff is particularly difficult, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions you guys might have, and also just provide some of my own personal background and anecdotes and stories and experiences I've had as a ham radio operator. All right? Yes?
I was going to say also, we have club meetings, so not every Monday, once every 2 weeks. We meet on Mondays, 5 to 6, Feathering Gill, 134. We always have food, usually it's Chick-fil-A. So,
Or pizza.
Or pizza. But the fun part is if you come out, you get to vote on what food you eat in the next 2 weeks. So
Okay.
come out, and we're all doing a lot of exciting things like
So make sure you have signed up for the Google group, the VUARC Google group, if you haven't done that yet. So that way, that's how we communicate, because not all of the people who are involved with the club are actually Vanderbilt students. We want to make sure to include as many, so that's why we do it on Google. So anyway, again, if you know somebody, please invite them. We can definitely got, how many more exams do we have? How many more manuals do we have?
I guess about 10 more, but we can always order more.
Okay, all right, we'll order more if we need them, yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes, please, feel free to do so. And our next meeting is going to be on Monday for the VUARC, right? This coming Monday.
This coming Monday.
Okay, 5 to 6?
5 to 6, Feathering Gill 134, it's the big auditorium.
Okay, all right. So anybody have any questions before we end for today? Okay.
More radios as well.
Okay. Yeah, as soon as we get the radios, yes,
How many classes do you think we'll go through?
There are going to be 9 classes, okay? Although, well, actually, there are 9 modules, but we may compress it down to 8 classes because the last chapter in safety is usually pretty short. So it's either going to be 8 or 9. And at the very end of the class, once we've gone through all the different modules, then I've also spent some time talking about what you need to do to prepare to go take the exam. And so we'll speak that. One thing that has changed, unfortunately, is it used to be it was free to get your amateur radio license. Congress changed that last year, unfortunately. Now you have to pay $35 to get your license. Okay? So anyway, that is the drawback. On the other hand, your license is good for 10 years. So you're paying $3.50 a year for the duration of your license. Not a whole lot of money, but just be prepared. You will have to pay that money in order to get it.
And you get a cool call sign. So.
Exactly. You get a cool call sign. So I'm WA4LLF. And I mentioned something as well. In amateur radio, we are all go by our first name. So it doesn't matter who you are. You can be President of the United States, but it doesn't matter. On amateur radio, you're your first name and you're your call sign. So I'm Tim, WA4LLF. It is one of the most egalitarian hobbies in the world, okay? Titles mean nothing. Nobody cares. So you actually will find there are a lot of very important people, celebrities, who have amateur radio licenses. And they're on their first name just like everybody else. So just something to think about. It's a fun hobby. It's a really pretty neat hobby. All right, guys. Done for today. I will see you next week. Same time, same place.